hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome back to this is Three Big Ideas series, and today we have joining us Paul Pittman. Paul Pittman, who is the founder of the Human Well, which is an organization that works with CEOs and business owners on human resources strategic initiatives. And Paul, welcome to joining us today. And along with us, we also have Jan Vanderhoop again, the president of Fit First Technologies, joining us in our series. So I was going to get us kicked off right away on this, Paul. I was just reading your blog, that series called The Recovery. And I know it's the first blog in a series of 10 that you're putting together during this time. And you really caught my attention with a line you said. And that line was, there are no experts. I would really love to start this conversation around that topic.
All right, Jim. Hi. Hello, Jan. How you guys doing?
Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me. Great opportunity. So, yeah, the thinking behind that, Tim, is that really we're in a new space here. Those of us that are a little long in the tooth and have seen a crisis or two, I've probably never been through anything like this. And I say that because all of these things that we've caused to damage the economy, or we expect to damage the economy, that will create some sort of recession, we've done to ourselves. It's the supply side. We've choked off demand, and we've prevented folks from going out there and doing what they normally do. And normally recessions occur as a gradual process where confidence starts to diminish, people stop spending, stop buying, and just hunker down. Well, we've caused that to happen literally overnight. I can remember the Thursday evening when that occurred, and from the following Friday, we were all at home and unable to enjoy our normal routines in life. So there's a school of thought, I think, that says maybe it will come back just as quickly, possibly not uniformly. Maybe it'll come back by industry, by sector, by product, who knows? But there really are no experts around. And while we may have been through a crisis or two in the past, and some of those old solutions are still going to work, there's no one that's really been through this before.
So Paul, stretch that out if you can. What do you see as the implications to CEOs and business owners?
So I think what we're suggesting to our clients and the folks that we're working with through consultations and through our advisory board on demand model is we're saying, look, the worst you could probably do is think that the future is going to be the same as the past. So when you emerge from this, you shouldn't be limiting your thinking to how do I get back to what I was? Because what you were may be bigger or smaller, but we think that in the process, there will be new markets that open up, new customers, new possibilities for your products through adaptation or modification because of the demand that comes out of this thing we're currently going through. You'll notice I don't refer to it by name, as I suggested in my blog. I think we've all had enough of the name. So
the anomaly.
Yeah, the implications for CEOs and business owners is there's a term in politics, never let a good crisis go to waste. And so really, we are encouraging our folks to think about new ways of selling, adapting, new markets, and new ways of doing business.
Yeah, well, which underscores the no experts piece, right? I mean, the reality is there's never been an anomaly like this in the economy or in social life. I mean, the last time we had a really good pandemic, it was a completely different world from a technical and a social standpoint. And I think you're right. To assume that it's going to go back the way it was before last Thursday is a dreadful mistake.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the entrepreneurs are coming to the fore. I mean, the chap that, and I can't remember his name, forgive me, who has the craft brewery, who's adapted his plant to producing hand sanitizers because it's
Yeah.
all alcohol based.
Yeah.
My friend Bonnie in Niagara is putting together a volunteer army of growers to help the farming industry down there because they have no access to temporary immigrant labor anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And so we will adapt, we will thrive, we will survive. Trade will continue, but maybe in a different form, and be prepared for that.
So people are going to be creative and resourceful, and necessity being the mother of invention. We'll be going back to better, not back to what we knew as normal.
I hope
Hopefully.
so. Yeah.
Hopefully. All right.
All right. So one of the other things that you talked about in that blog also, Paul, was the whole idea about the remote worker being part of that new world that an awful lot of people who have never had remote workers before now are forced to have them, and there's some learning going on.
Yeah, Tim. So I think what we're trying to get across there is the thought that the genie is out of the bottle, and I'm going to be generalized here, but the notion of working at home or remotely was unusual. It was the exception, and it was to accommodate, family circumstances or a situation you might have had in your personal life. I think what we're going to find now is that, as you rightly say, a lot of employers have had to deal with sending folks home and working from home, and they've dealt with it, they've coped with it, they've managed through the crisis. But a lot of folks are going to be saying, you know what, Tim, I quite like working at home. I'm over that water cooler effect. I felt I needed a water cooler, but I'm over that now. I'm used to working from home. In fact, it suits me because I can work whenever I want. So if I've got kid duties and pick up and drop off duties, I can work around that. I can get up at 5 in the morning and work when I want to. I can work when I can't sleep.
Yeah,
and
put that chicken in the oven at 3 o'clock.
Absolutely. And so I think we're going to find a lot of our folks are coming back, and they're going to be saying, I'm pretty uncomfortable about spending time in the office now and recycled air and touching and all of that stuff. And could you accommodate me working from home a lot more? And, maybe 4 days a week. And we're going to have to decide what we say to that. I think a lot of boomers, for example, are simply going to say, it's just too risky now. I'm at that age, I'm vulnerable, I've got other health issues. There may be some strains remaining in the office. And so I'm just going to use this as an opportunity to never go back to the office. Well, that's a huge loss of intel and experience and gray hair, which a lot of businesses can't afford. So Paul,
for me, that there might be an ages and stages thing to that. I mean, you're talking about the boomers, and I agree with you. I mean, we, as boomers, we carry different vulnerabilities, different health risks, and so there's the safety aspect of not wanting to be in the office. But I think at different stages in our lives, we have different social requirements, and we have different training requirements. And so, I would say as an employer, I might be more amenable to allowing an employee who's in their 30s or beyond to work from home than I would be somebody who's much earlier in their career who still needs to learn the disciplines and needs to have structure and teaching and training and mentoring and the hands-on stuff that's required of me as a manager of somebody who's new.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, so I'd like to get your reaction to that. But then the other question for me around this working from home thing is, how on God's earth as a manager do I maintain engagement?
Yeah, very good. All good. So I think to be frank, Jan, we're probably not going to have a lot of choice. I mean, the labor pool is suddenly not going to get bigger as a consequence of this. We knew it was getting smaller, and it will have now suddenly gotten a lot smaller, because if our prediction around boomers is right, and a lot of them choose to retire simply because of fear of reinfection, then labor will be scarce and will continue to be scarce. And we have to remember that there's a lot of employers out there who have just not stopped recruiting. Walmart and Amazon are recruiting thousands of people.
Tens of thousands, yeah.
And the grocery industry will continue to do that, and other industries too, the delivery people. And so I think you're going to be fighting for, those sorts of skills, and deeper skills, more specialized skills. I think it will be a seller's market. And so you may not have a choice. And so you're going to have to figure out ways to handle that training, handle how you measure performance. And I think this will be a time when we finally give up the ghost of measuring performance by FaceTime and move to productivity and output. We've been saying we're going to do that for years. This will be maybe it. I think also that we're going to have to think about what leadership means. To your point, how you've poured, like all of us, we've poured countless hours and dollars into engagement over the last 10 years. And there's no question.
And time and personal equity.
Absolutely. And there's no question that it results in higher productivity. We're beyond that being the theory now. We know for sure that that's the case. So folks are going to should be super sensitive that their actions during this initial period could destroy that. That investment could turn rapidly back into a cost if we're not careful. And so, we know that companies who leap to layoffs as their first reaction tend to take 20% longer to recover. Now, if the market is going to come back in the whooshes and by sectors, by industry that we think maybe is a possibility, then that may have been a premature action in this instance. And if you do that, you've got to have a means of getting those folks back. You've got to be able to scale up again.
Right. Yeah.
Cash is king. We get that. We understand that. And you've got to do whatever you have to do to preserve the business. But there's a sense too, I think, that this is more about people than it is about pennies. We're all in this together, and there's a social obligation to how we all come through this, rather than it just being pure economics. Does that make sense from where you're sitting?
From my perspective, it depends on who we're speaking to. Right. I think the way we're seeing nations manage this is very much a reflection of their culture and the underlying social structure, right? So, Canadians tend to have a much more collectivist view of we're all in this together. We got to figure it out together. We got to support one another through it. And we're not seeing that uniformly in some of the other countries where we're operating.
Sure. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
So Paul, third big idea that I wanted to make sure we touched on while we were together today was that you brought up this whole idea as well, as that from all these events, and you just said it recently, a minute ago, there's always within these crises, there's always opportunities and there's always learning. What is it that you see as being some of the permanent learning that we're going to walk away from when we are exiting this time and moving on to the sort of next period in our world?
Yeah. So I think what we should use this opportunity, Tim, as employers, to learn what's working, what our people like, what they don't like, where they felt we've supported them, where they felt we haven't. And I think that we are probably going to have to come to terms with working from home is going to become a major part of our activities rather than the exception and the infrequent part. And so are we doing enough to support folks at home? Are we doing enough? There's actually an interview on the site that talks about creating the virtual office that I did a few years ago with a radio station. But when you think you're going to have someone at home now for maybe 2 or 3 days a week, perhaps, that raises questions of data security. They're probably using a domestic Wi-Fi line. Is that adequately protected? If you're using secure data or financial data or personal data, have you got the appropriate controls in place? Safety, health and safety is now an issue. That employee's home now becomes an off-site office. So you've
Part
got
of your workplace.
workers' comp issues, employee benefit issues, and so on. So there's the cautious things, there's things that need to be mitigated, but also there's a positive thing. Jan, if you're at home 2 or 3 days a week, is there more I can do to help you deliver? Would it be helpful if we got you a faster laptop? Would it be helpful if we got you an ergonomically desirable, desk
Desk or chair, whatever, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's all these things that I think will help build engagement. But first and foremost, for the points that you raised, is adequate communication, equality between folks that show up in the office because they can't do without the water cooler, and those folks that elect to stay home. Are you treating them equally and fairly? There are going to be issues around job evaluation and location of work, which will be a factor in, as you know, job evaluation. There'll be functions of pay equity that will be affected. So all of these things need to be revisited if folks are spending a bigger chunk of their time away from the office.
Yeah, not to mention building community and strengthening the social fabric. It's one thing for me as the leader to build a routine where I'm checking in with the group in a huddle in the morning, and then maybe making sure I'm doing one-with-ones every couple of days with each individual. But that doesn't build the network between the individuals.
Yeah, you're so right. As a leader, you are having to do all of that. You're conscious of that. You're now going to do it virtually rather than physically. So it's going to be tough to see people's facial expressions and see, to read how they're receiving information or directions. So much of our work today is done through Teams. And that's, I think, the point you're getting at. How do we ensure collaboration is as effective as it was when we all used to huddle around the meeting room table?
Right. We've
got to figure that out. Those are one of the new challenges. So Tim, that's a learning, I think, that let's start observing that now during this period of mobilization and see what sticks for the future.
Well, our time's pretty much coming to an end here, Paul. I want to just sort of check in for giving you an opportunity to have any last words. Jan, is there any last questions that you want to make sure we put to Paul before we send them out the door?
No, I think it's come nicely full circle. I mean, the whole permanent learnings thing dovetails beautifully with the fact there are no experts, and Paul's opening comment about, we need to be resourceful and open to learning and figuring stuff out as we go, because this is not familiar territory.
Yeah, well, I think, Paul, I'm certainly looking forward to the rest of your recovery series in your blog. I know there's 10 in the series. I think you just had the first ones just recently come out. So what should we be looking forward to in the blog as it's coming through? What kind of messages will you be sharing?
Well, the next one that you'll see, Tim, is all about trying to get owners, managers, CEOs to think about where they are in the recovery. So will they be playing this broader role as we outlined earlier? Know where you are in the process and what are the opportunities. So we're really saying, look, you're going to be developing a strategic plan in a period of uncertainty. So that requires more assessment, more scenario planning, more outcome planning. But it's going to be worth the effort, I think.
Very good. Well, we're looking forward to for the rest of the series. For those who have been following along, at the end of this conversation, we'll give you the link so that you can link over to Paul and his recovery blog series, as well as to his website at The Human Well. Jan, thank you. Paul, thank you very much. This has been a very insightful conversation. Till next time, thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys.
Tim.